Hi, Mark. I was just curious on these 100-gallon potters and the 55 or 50-gallon potter, how much water do you think we should be putting them in? Should it, just a roundabout idea because I have a feeling we're underwatering and I'm just not positive because I'm not positive how much comes out of the pump and I don't know how to even explain this. Anyhow, I'm just curious, how many gallons do you think we should be putting in these potters? Just an idea of how many. Thanks.
You're here with Mark Boutwell at perfectgardens.com. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We got our $2.99 membership, and we have a VIP if you need a little more one-on-one. Link down in the description.
You need to do a test, and the test needs to be done over a course of a couple different pots. And I would probably say you need to do a test where you're like doing a pot on each of the corners of the facility, because you're on a relatively large area, 100 by at least 250 feet. I could be wrong, but when I see some of those pictures, I'm like, you're definitely covering some distance, so some square footage. So you're going to want to do a test. If you do a pot on the near corner of each of your rectangle, and then a pot in the center, where what you're going to do is, and it's going to be different too, because you have two different types of pots. One pot, you have the water, I promise you, literally finds the path of least resistance and flows right out the edges, corners, or the sides. The pots you purchased, you're not going to have that problem. The water's actually going to stay in the pot and it's going to flow down and better saturate everything. So you're going to, in a sense, have two different types of watering experiences. One pot, you're going to probably retain more water and going to have to probably still water frequently, but not water as much. It might be, who knows, a 10-second count or a 15-second count, while the other ones might be a 20-second count. But even on the 20-second counts, let's say you're standing, right, and there's 4 pots around you. Well, you're not going to want to stand at one pot. I'm not saying to do 20 seconds. I'm just saying you're not going to want to stand there and do 20 seconds on one pot. Ideally, you would want to do, let's say, stand on one pot, do 5 seconds, pivot 90 degrees, do another pot for 5 seconds, pivot another 90 degrees, do another one for 5 seconds, and then repeat that 4 times to the point where each pot got 20 seconds, or it could be 10 seconds, or, however long. Because what you want is when you water, you don't want a fast watering. You want a slow watering. Even if you went down the aisles and you guys watered each pot for 10 seconds, you want to go back after you've watered all those pots and give them another 10 seconds, 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, because it's all about surface tension in dry pocket. I talk about this all the time in the channel. It's funny. It's always funny to me because I keep talking about it because it keeps getting overlooked and missed. And when you water, you want to create a situation where you put water in there and it starts to break surface tension, and that's going to take a little bit of time. And then after it breaks surface tension, then you want to go back and rewater. You might have to do that 3 times. You might have to go water for 15 seconds and then walk all the way down the line and then come back and rewater again for 15 seconds and then come back and rewater again for 15 seconds. Just for example, I'm going to talk about my potato pots right now because I think they're near close to the same size. I think I got 30-gallon pots. You might have gotten 45. It also isn't fair too because I've been getting a lot of rain, so I probably would be having to water a lot more. But each pot right now is because I've been getting a lot of rain. But even with a lot of rain, each pot's probably been getting 5 seconds, 6 seconds right now. And because I'm getting so much rain, what I'm really doing is I'm keeping the surface of the pots moist because I don't want them to dry out. I'm not watering a lot because I don't want water to drain out the bottom of the pots because that pulls the chemistry out of my pots. And it flushes the chemistry and the trace minerals out. I don't want that. I want to keep the surface of the soil moist and not dried out, because if it gets dried out, then it creates a surface tension. And then I have to go through a process of breaking the surface tension, and it makes my soil hard, right? So what I'm doing is I'm explaining what I'm going through and what I'm doing on a daily basis for my watering practice, because you have to understand that when you're growing outdoors, if I was there, I'd be able to give you a better example. But because you're over where you're at, you also have to take consideration. You're like, okay, Mark's telling me that when it rains, that's kind of watering the pot, but he's still going back, and even though the pot's full of water, he's still going back and putting the... So you have to take in consideration your area, and you're like, because you're growing outdoors, you have to take in consideration a couple factors: your altitude, your relative humidity. Like where I live, it's super dry, so it's going to be sucking moisture out, and it's going to be drying the whatever is closest to the environment is going to be sucking that out. So that's why I'm not terribly concerned about the center of the pot, because I know it's been moist because it's been raining, but I have to make sure the surface tension doesn't start to build up, because then that creates the first half inch of so much biology happens in that first half inch to inch of your soil. Biology lives in the moisture. So I mean, it thrives in moisture, not being saturated, but when it's a moist environment. So I go through and I make sure to moisten the top of the soil, because I'm not trying to water the pots. I'm trying to keep moisture in the environment for the chemistry, for the biology to do its job. It's a different mindset around all of this. And so many farmers just think about watering an X amount, like, okay, I'm going to water my plants. But I'm watering my plants, but I am always taking into consideration the water flowing out to the bottom. And then also for you guys, because your pots are sitting on the ground themselves, moisture is also going to be coming up from the ground, right? Very quickly over time, roots are actually going to be growing through your pots into the ground, pulling water from the ground up. So, and that's going to take a little time. But roots are going to be getting down there probably within a week or so. So there are different factors, and you have to just remember that the most important thing is a slow watering practice. And if it's putting in a 10-second count and you guys are normally putting in 20 seconds, it's better to split up that 20 seconds over 2 10 seconds than to stay there for 20 seconds, because the majority of that water is going to find the path of least resistance. It's going to flow right out of the pots, and you're not going to have time for surface tension to break. And then after surface tension break, and that takes a little bit of time, 10-15 minutes. After that happens, then you can rewater for the next 10 seconds, and then that really actually ends up getting absorbed into the pot. These are some phenomenal products to create an insurance to making sure that your plant always has some water as a worst case scenario. They might not be 100% fix it problem, especially if you have to water quite often, but if you have emergency come up or you have to walk away, these products will solve your problems.